Folks, you are so welcome. And I don't mean all of you are welcome, I mean every single one of you is welcome. Andy and Eddie and Anne and Jerry and Trevor and everybody. You're very welcome. And I'd like this evening to be your evening. I'd like it to be an evening where you are doing a little bit of reflecting and being grateful for your beautiful lives. So it's your evening, and I'm so grateful that you are here, and I'm especially grateful to my dear sister Margaret, my co Max, and the other man you may or may not know, Sean Boyle, a very dear friend. The most important kind of image or message for life that I think is this. In other words, whenever you ask somebody how they are, they talk about their situation, kind of what's happening to them. We talk about this, and we even say, how are things? How are things? As if that's what determines our happiness. And I don't think that's the case. I think what determines our happiness is how we perceive our lives and how we handle our lives. When I'm abroad, working in different countries, I always tell about my sister Margaret. And I tell about her life, and some of you know a lot about her life, but very quickly, when she was 10, my mother got ill. And so she nursed my dying mother for 3 years, and then my mother died at the age of 13, and Margaret was taken out from school, so she had no education, to mind us, and handled all of that with great joy. And then, as some of you know again, she married a wonderful man, Jim Hayes, and as some of you know, on the 23rd of January 1983, Liam Hayes and I found him hanging from the crossbar down the football field. I tell this story all over the world, and I tell it because I say to people, and those of you who know who will vouch for this, I know a few people who are happier and more generous than my sister Margaret is. I know a few people who are happier and more joyful than she is. And I give that as an example to people of just how it is possible. With help, with grace, with support, of course, not just about willpower, even though that's important. I'm going to ask her about that later on. But with help, we can find that wonderful response to life. Max, I was saying earlier that one can be, it sounds a big claim, that one can be very sad and very happy at the same time. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. Absolutely.
Because every day you wake up sad, isn't that true?
Well, I'm very sad about that, yes, I'm very, very sad. But I'm a happy person, I'm a very happy person. God sent me into the world, I think, with a good disposition. I feel that anyway, He did that for me. And I feel happy, I'm a happy person. Little things mean an awful lot to me.
Sean, yeah, I knew one asked me a question anyway, but it doesn't matter. Sean, how much of life is the miraculous? I always, you have work miracles, you do work miracles in all kinds of areas, Sean. How much of it is down to spirit, the special gifts that we have?
And it was probably one of the greatest lessons I ever got in my life. The lesson was very simple, that you might be able to do things as good as somebody else, but you're privileged to be able to do it. And if you make a mess of it, well, so be it. But do it. Have a go at it.
I think that's important, just to be able to kind of understand that sometimes we don't know what's good for us. We don't know. We get disappointed with things. We don't know. We don't know what will eventually happen. And life is a wonderful way of turning things around into good. I often use the image of a tree. And when you look at a tree in winter, you never see one straight branch. Not one straight branch. They all start off with the intention of going straight, but then the light gets blocked or something gets blocked and they twist and turn, etc. And it can look bad in winter, but then it's just beautiful in summer. The beautiful shape of the whole thing is wonderful, but it's made up of crooked branches. We've all had our turns and got blocked in life and disappointed in life, and those who know me, I've had so many of them in my life, twists and turns and blocks, etc. But I hope that the whole wisdom behind it all, the whole intelligence, loving intelligence behind it all that we call God, will work it out.
I do this a lot, but I was asked this morning, or I got an email months ago from a student in Maynooth, and he said, "Would you come in? Could I interview about spent convictions that's happened? That this is legislation that would remove convictions from young people especially." And I went into the Gresham Hotel this morning because it's so central. I meet a lot of them there because it's so central, and most people know where our council is. So I went in to meet him this morning, and he was waiting inside at 11 for me. But when we got chatting, he said, "Well, do you remember me?" And I said, "No, I don't." But he said, "I was in your establishment once." And he didn't escape, Donald. But anyway, we got talking anyway, and he was in Illinois, and he served time there. And then he has reformed himself, and he has gone back to college, and now he's studying out in Maynooth. And he was interviewing me as part of his thesis. And for me, you see, that is fantastic. Good news. That alone today would make anyone's day. To see someone like that and say, right, he had it tough. He was in prison when he was 17 as well, and in detention, and he kept a long part of his early life, and now he's out and he's in Maynooth. And I suppose the little final thing he said then was, which was so inspiring in his own little way, is that he brought his 17-year-old daughter down to see Maynooth, and he said, God, he said, she's immediately saying now, I want to go here as well. And that's fantastic as well.
So the most important thing, I think, in life is not the situations we are in or we find ourselves in, but how are we handling them? How well are we handling them? No matter what's happening here, it's our response, our behaviour that makes all the difference. Some people feel that, well, that's true. That's true. It is about how we live each day and are we making the most of it. But surely there are situations so extreme, so bad, that no matter how well you handled it, no matter how strong and brave and insightful you were, you just couldn't handle it well. And I say no. There are no exceptions to it. And I give a few examples. I talk about Viktor Frankl, whom some of you know. And one night he was asleep, and the man beside him was having a nightmare and woke him up. And he was going to wake the man up from the nightmare, and then he said, no, I won't do it. Because no matter how awful that nightmare is, it won't compare to the reality that I'm going to wake him up to. And notwithstanding that, Frankl managed to live a full and meaningful life in Auschwitz. And he talks about it not in an arrogant way, but he talks about how it's possible to do that by simply doing a little bit like I'm saying in the book, making the most of whatever is happening and living it to the very best of your ability. I don't want to retell the story, Donald's story, but it's as good a thriller as you would get is Donald's escape story from Crumlin Road Jail in 1960 at the age of 21. And it's a wonderful story. You weren't doing too much really. How much of a sentence did you get for what you were doing?
Well, when I was 17, I was arrested, and I'm speaking a bit louder because one or two people have nodded to me that need to hear, but like myself, maybe they need the hearing aids. But so I just speak that bit louder, make sure everybody hears me. In 1957, at the age of 17, I was arrested, and at the age of 18, when I was in jail, I was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment on a single charge of membership of an illegal organisation, to wit, the Irish Republican Army, known locally as the IRA. And I got 10 years. Lord Chief Justice McDermott gave me 10 years, and I served just over 3 years of that before I escaped on St Stephen's Day 1960 with another colleague of mine from Belfast, John Kelly, who unfortunately was recaptured. And it was at that time, I mean, I'm going back to the middle of the last century, and I can tell you, jail was jail. It was no television, of course. We didn't have television at home either, of course. We weren't allowed radio. We weren't allowed music. There was absolutely none of those things we were allowed. We were in the high security wing, which is A wing, and it was staffed and guarded by all you see in pillboxes around the walls. They were armed. It wasn't the prison officers. It was all you see were those. And they had, of course, every year they were doing additional things to secure A wing. It seemed to be an ongoing process, and nobody had escaped from there since 1943. So, I mean, you couldn't blame the prison warders for being a little bit slack in some areas. But one of the things they did was they built a wall between the administrative block and the main wall to cut off our A wing to make it more secure. And that was the piece of the jigsaw I was waiting for. Because the administration block, I could climb up the windows, because the windows had vertical and horizontal bars. It was like a ladder. And because of the laundry and the tailor's shop, the gun tower here couldn't see us because of that. And the guy in the D-wing gun tower couldn't see us either because we're on the blind side. So it just shows you what happens in life.
I would have to say I've been blessed. I've been awful lucky. Was I very talented? Absolutely not. The one thing I never had, and the things like the instance with James Noel and so on, is I never experienced envy.
So that's the beauty of Sean, and not only in terms of football, but also in terms of seeing the beauty in people. And that's what the book is about. It's about trying to help all of us handle each day and see each day as an adventure. That's what that assignment was and what happened.
Well, I suppose I've been talking about this for years, that I believe, which I do believe, fundamentally, that every human being has a unique gift, a special gift to that human being. I actually believe that. And some people go through life and they never find or discover their ability, that particular gift. So we went off to Belfast and we spent 13 weeks there, and then we came back. And two little things I want to tell you about, I suppose, the things I learned at that circus. The first thing I learned at that circus was how significant in our lives is vocabulary. Something that we take for granted, our ability to communicate. I suppose the rewarding thing was that they performed amazingly, and so good like that. And this is, I suppose, the real proof of it was that when they were finished their second performance, they were bursting to do a third. They were saying, well, "Can we do it again?" And I said, "No, go home." No, but it was just that lovely innocence, really. And I kept saying finally as well. I used to keep saying to them, at the start, I said, you won't get the gist of this, you won't get the real value of this until you get the reaction from an audience. Because it's when an audience responds to you that you will really get the buzz out of it and the kick out of it. And sure enough, that's what happened. Some philosopher said years and years ago, every human being deserves at least one standing ovation in their lives.
Einstein asked the question, he said, the most important question is the theory of relativity. The most important question is the universe a friendly place? Is the universe a friendly place? And I think it's about seeing the meaning and the friendliness in the universe. You might say that's subjective. It is subjective, but I think it's down to how we perform. I think we're called to be full human beings, to give this our best response, whatever it is. And if we do, we will find the meaning of it. I love that joke about the couple who went to see the Mona Lisa. And he said to her, "I don't think much of it." And she said, "Neither do I." And the curator came along and said, "The Mona Lisa is not in judgment here." In other words, if you can't see the beauty in it, it could be about you. It could be about you. So that's what the book is about. It's just an invitation to see the beauty in everything. Tell them about your conversation in the post office some months back. You leave the post office where people want to give out the day or something. Remember the post office, was it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I went to the post office and they were saying it was an terrible day, and I said, "Look," I said, "it's no wonder we were able to be here. Isn't it fantastic? We're so well." And I kind of looking at me, I said, "It's very bad." I said, "I know, but I don't mind that." It's like, wait, we were so healthy and well to be able to be here.
When I can look around the room, I can see people who come through things and handle things. So just feel grateful for what you were able to do as well, and feel grateful for the effort that you were able to make in that situation, however tough it was. But that's all our calling, I think, is to be able to see the beauty and the meaning in our lives. And therefore the book is intended to kind of help people do that and not take any day as just another day, as just an ordinary day. When people say to me, "What date is today?" I have no difficulty telling what day today is, because every day is a very special one, has a special theme to it. One of the things it says about on day 6 today is, pay attention to what's on the ground, on the earth: floors, footpaths, roads, fields, lawns, soil, gardens, carpets, tiles, and feel the life in them. And then it also says, anytime you're feeling down, accept it. We all feel down. And you've all had your own tragedies, like Margaret and we've all had. You've all had your own tragedies, Mary and many other people here, and I know of some of them. and you've all handled it so bravely. That's why I would like this evening to be a kind of a celebration of you and of what you're able to do. I'm looking around the room and I can see all kinds of sad stories and tragedies, as well as great joy from Eddie and Francis, who just had their second grandchild, etc. But you've all had that. But it says, anytime you're feeling down, accept it and live with it, and don't seek to get away from it, to flee it. Stay with your downness. It's okay. Be there. It will pass. But don't want or wait for it to pass. It's an okay place to be. That's tough. But we can be there. I know a little bit about depression. I can remember driving once to run a program, and I remember saying to myself, I can't do this. I just can't do it. But I gripped the steering wheel and I said, I can do this. I can hold the steering wheel. I can go the next mile. And I did that, and then I went the next mile and the next mile. And even though I never left my depressed state, I probably ran the best program I ever did, because I was right there in the moment with nothing, with kind of no hope, with blackness, etc. But I can just take the next step. And by taking the next step, I'm dragged into finding the meaning in it, whatever it is. And it's like the message from the day 6 is that you can find meaning and beauty in whatever it is. And I said to you, John, it might have been good just to get on their good side, because then you could have got more money for Mountjoy, and you could have got better facilities for people if you just had a little bit of give and take.
Yeah. Yeah, and I spoke to you about that at the time. But as you have mentioned already, I think I've always argued, as you know, when we are debating things, I've always argued that either you have values or you haven't. And if you have values, you must live by them through thick and thin. And it's no use having values and then when the crunch comes that you're going to do something else. So like the truth, honesty, decency, all of those sorts of things. I believe fundamentally in those. I was brought up, I suppose, a bit on that basis as well. And so from day one, I would have believed in that. And that meant then standing by those things. The truth especially. I mean, an old civil servant, long man, many years dead now. But when we were young lads working in Shanganagh Castle, which was an open prison at the time, he used to make a point of coming out regularly to speak to us, to coach us, to encourage us, because we were working with young people. And he felt that was a great opportunity to help young people that had gone astray, to try to bring them back in line again. And one of the nights he said to us something that I've never forgotten, and he said, very profoundly, he said, just remember this, the truth will never go away. And as a society we have learned that so often in the last 10 years in particular, about the long distant past. The truth never goes away. And I remember when I was in staff training, I told you this as well, he put out a questionnaire for staff to say, well, what training do you need? By far the most popular was, for training was, how to give evidence in court. I used to always say to them, no need for training for that. And of course they'd be looking at you and I'd say, no need for training, just go down and tell the truth. And you don't even have to remember it. It's actually true. If you think about it, I mean, I'm always saying to people, if you're telling the truth, you can look them in the eyeball. And in my time, Paddy McEntee was regarded as the guru when it came to cross-examination. Well, no matter what angle it come from, if you're telling the truth, you don't care. But if you're telling lies, you can be saying, what's he going to say next time? What did I say the last time? And will I think again? So he was dead right about that. And so that you have to make sure that your integrity, and of course I also learned very, myself on my own, I learned this, that you show respect to gain respect. And I have always said that as well. If you're nice to people, kind to people, never do a bad turn for anybody.
I often, talk to groups about this. I say that you can't kind of pick and choose from life. Life is like a forest, and it's the forest that matters. But within the forest, all kinds of things happen. Things get eaten and swamped and covered over, etc. And we can't go interfering and saying, I want this mouse to stop eating this insect, and I want this bear to stop eating the mouse, etc., etc. We can't go interfering. We have to kind of take the totality of it. And there's a wonderful kind of wisdom, I think, in life that makes things work out well. I'm not trying to say that what happens is good, because bad things happen. Like I asked you on that trip home, even with Jared's death, good came from it, even though it was the most horrific thing that could happen to any mother or anybody. Didn't it? Some good came from it.
Absolutely. You could help others.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you could help others, which was great.